I'm really excited to tell you about my new project called the Sour Milk School, which I will begin when I return to the US in January and start teaching a series of 5-day natural cheese making workshops, which will be January, February, March in California, and then probably April, May, June, Oregon, Washington. And at this point, I'm looking to find hosts who want to help me put these on. And the general idea is that I want to show how people can make starter cultures from raw milk, from fresh, healthy raw milk that would be cultivating the microbes in that milk in order to make essentially any style of cheese. And I will go into like the basics of the milk microbes, how to ferment them, how to steer the fermentation, and what coagulation is. So we'll look at how rennet is made and used, and plant coagulants such as thistle as well. I also want to talk about the materials that are used to make cheese, such as wooden vats and copper, and also look at the materials that are used to mold cheese in, so hand-woven baskets or pottery. And a big focus of mine is on this concept of reclaiming our senses and using them to guide us through the fermentation process. So I think we are all in possession of a really precise chemical sensing organ called our nose, and that we can use this, and we've forgotten how to use it and it's been dulled, but we can actually reclaim this sense and sharpen it and exercise it. And cheese is just one of the many fermentations that we can use to expose ourselves to novel taste and flavor experiences. So I will travel with a pH meter and use it to show students how the milk is fermenting and acidifying, and that they can start to detect that with their nose and taste buds. And I want to focus on two styles of cheese, the first being lactic cheeses, such as Chev or other spreadable fresh cheeses. So these are made with a small amount of coagulant to a high acidity, and then they can be drained and eaten fresh or ripened into small white mold or geotrichum cheeses. The second style are stretched curd cheeses, such as mozzarella and a more aged version called Caciocavallo. These cheeses acidify to a point where the curd will stretch, and this technique of stretching curd can be used as a way of gauging pH as well. Caciocavallo is probably the easiest cheese to age. It's very forgiving, so it's a good one to start with. And both of these styles can be eaten at any point from fresh to 1 or 2 weeks or a month or longer old. So that is another advantage of starting with these two. And we'll also learn about making ricotta and feta. The idea behind all of this and the philosophy that I wish to share is that we can trust microbes and we can work with them, and we can create the conditions in which microbes that ferment milk and grow on cheese can thrive, and that this is actually a form of food safety. And it all is based on the health of the ecology, the microbial ecology of the raw milk. So we want to look at how we can source this milk or produce it ourselves. And it comes down to the health of the animals, what they're sleeping on, what the herd size is. What I'm looking at is spreading not only these methods, but a general philosophy about life and about food and about microbes. It's about opening ourselves up to new experiences and reclaiming our senses and empowering people to make their own food in their own homes. So this is a part of the paradigm shift that is happening in modern health and science that realizes that microbes are the basis of human health, ecological health, and the antibiotic paradigm has been misguided and taken too far. So let me know if you're interested in hosting or attending one of these classes. The roots of the techniques that I will be teaching in sour milk school come from my journey as milk trekker, which started in Mongolia. So this is how cheese was made there, where the milk was heated over a fire and then very sour whey was added to get this delicate curd to form. They don't use any rennet in their cheeses there. They're all either acid and heat coagulated like this or some variation of yogurt. The curd is drained into a cloth and then it is pressed on a wooden board outside with rocks. And so I've always thought cheese had to be made inside this really clean space, but here they are safely making food in a environment that would be considered really unsanitary to most people. But it was successful because of the quality of their milk, the fact that their animals were outside all the time, etc. This is in Tibet where I went next, and I was working with an organization that is creating products to help support the yak herders there from their milk. So this was one of the monks, and that's the sign of Kadak Organic. So I was teaching natural cheese making using their milk to create starter cultures and ferment cheeses, but also documenting the methods that they're using, and that became kind of the focus of my project. These are some of the naturally fermented cheeses that I made. They worked out beautifully. I then went to Italy and learned all about stretched curd cheeses at this place called Casino Lago Scuro, and you can see the vat has like things growing on the outside of it, but the inside is fairly clean because they're using incredibly hot water to clean this every day, and it kind of smelled like sour milk, so there's definitely still some microbes living in there, but the good ones. And I learned all about the range of stretched curd cheeses, from fresh mozzarella to lightly aged scamorza and caciocavallo, all made with a natural starter culture where they would ferment whey at thermophilic temperature in like this sous vide machine to select for those bacteria. So this was an example of the style of cheese making that I will now be teaching. And this is Slovenia, and I began in traveling in August of 2021 and went here to work with these herders who are in an alpine summer grazing area making cheese in a copper vat. And this is another material that I'm really interested in. Copper is incredible, probably the best material to make a cheese vat. And then the cheeses are being pressed on this wooden table that smelled like sour milk, again, microbes thriving on it, and then the press is above, so he releases the pressure and then applies it with that stick. A DIY cheese press made from local materials. This is butter being churned in a wooden barrel with a machine kind of rigged up to do what normally would be manual handwork. I then went to Sicily and worked with the Cangemi family, who are making a cheese called Vestetta, which is no added starter culture. They're using wooden materials that serve as reservoirs for the bacteria that are fermenting the milk and originate from the milk itself. There's a separate little vat for stretching the curd in and a wooden paddle. And the use of wood is a technique I'm very interested in for cultivating microbes. This is the stretching of the curd, and then it is made into little balls which are placed into bowls. And I'm also interested in like woven materials for baskets. So this is how Pecorino Siciliano is made, and those baskets are made by a guy who harvests the reeds and is one of the few people still making them. But it's a really interesting natural material. Almost everywhere in the world they're using plastics now, but you can make these things yourself. On to Georgia, where this cheese is fermented in wooden barrels, and there's a wooden draining table with plastic on top of it and a beautiful view. It's basically in a tent. The cheese is actually aged inside of a sheepskin in contact with the wool. And for me, this is the exact opposite of making cheese in the industrial way that is encouraged in America. Besides starter cultures, I really want to talk about rennet and how it is made and how important it is in the making of cheese. animal rennet or plant coagulants such as thistle, which is used in the Canary Islands. So what I've learned from all these travels is a approach and philosophy towards milk fermentation that I think can be adapted to many different situations. And this is what I want to talk about in these workshops, how you can do this stuff yourself.